Speaker of the House Mike Johnson appeared on Meet the Press, and as you would probably expect, they could not wait to bring up President Trump's exchange in the White House with President Zelensky of Ukraine. In typical left-wing leaning media, everything they tried to do was to pull a gotcha moment on Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. But one thing the Speaker of the House does, he remains cool, calm, and collective, answers the question, and articulates the point. But one thing I want to make sure that we are always aware of when we're watching these interviews, and pay attention on this one in particular, because in this video, I'm going to just show a few of the clips where she would raise a point, he would address it, and before she moved on to the next question, there was something that she would do every single time that plays a huge part in how Americans perceive what Republicans in Congress and in Senate are doing. Without further ado, let me stop talking. Let me get to it. Check this out.
Hey, Kristen, great to be with you as always.
It's great to have you back, Mr. Speaker. As you know, reaction has been pouring into that Oval Office meeting on Friday. Democrats and even some Republicans say it only emboldened Vladimir Putin. A Kremlin spokesman saying today that the U.S. foreign policy shift, quote, largely coincides with its vision. Here was the Wall Street Journal editorial board, quote, Putin wins the Trump-Zelensky Oval Office spectacle. Was Vladimir Putin the winner here, Mr. Speaker?
No, he wasn't. Listen, I have participated in a lot of bilateral meetings in my time with heads of state and other dignitaries. There's always a certain protocol that goes along with this. I've never seen anything like President Zelensky's behavior there. He berated and interrupted his host, and instead of expressing gratitude for the extraordinary help that the U.S. has provided his country and effectively helped him stay alive and stay in power. So the way that went down was very disappointing. I hope and pray, frankly, that President Zelensky will come to his senses, come back to President Trump, express gratitude as he should, apologize for his behavior there, and accept this mineral rights deal, because that is the best way for us to get to a point of peace over there in that region, and it's in the interest of both countries.
You know, the one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that President Zelensky had agreed weeks ago to the mineral deal. Now, the mineral deal in Ukraine, the minerals and things that they have is worth $14.2 trillion. So they've got 14.2 worth of minerals and all types of like exotic natural resources that are extremely valuable, especially when it comes to the development and building of superconductor chips. Now, they already have deals with the EU, where like France and Germany, all of them are getting their money back. Matter of fact, Great Britain just signed a $2 billion loan with Ukraine just Friday. French Prime Minister Macron said that it wasn't a loan, that they were giving Ukraine the money. But then Zelensky literally signs a $2 billion loan with Great Britain just yesterday. But with the U.S., he said publicly that he didn't feel that he had to repay the money, or he should have to repay the money, because of some agreement that he made with Joe Biden. And Donald Trump isn't saying, hey, give us any money back, no cash. He's saying, listen, if you want to stop Vladimir Putin, let's do this. Make us a small partner. We'll dig up and take some of your minerals worth $500 billion. And since we have a $500 billion stake or special interest in your country, means that foreign entities will realize, hey, listen, America's got stake in that. We may want to stay away from that, because we're not just touching something that belongs to Ukraine. We're touching something that belongs to the United States too. And President Trump's peace deal was with Zelensky being able to reclaim some of their sovereign land. And Putin, of course, being able to keep a little bit of what he got. So it's one of those deals where nobody's going to be 100% satisfied. But at the end of the day, what is the alternative? For the last 3 years, Joe Biden took the podium and said, don't, and threw out sanctions. You know how much what those sanctions did? All those sanctions did was strengthen Russia's relationship with China, North Korea, Iran. Because, okay, you got sanctions with the U.S., cool. There's a lot of other really big countries out there that were willing to do business that are ran with dictators like Vladimir Putin. But here's the thing about the whole dictator part that the left doesn't want you to know. Do you know that in Ukraine, Zelensky canceled all elections? So for the last 3 years, there have been no elections in Ukraine. Also, did you know that in Ukraine, Zelensky, the government, took over television and all media? So everything coming out the media, I mean, the TV, newspapers, social media, It is all state-ran, communist style. Do you know also that in Ukraine, President Zelensky has removed all political adversaries? There is no other political adversaries that can raise up and try to contest him for power. So we talk about dictatorships. And then we look at President Trump. The left-wing media is pointing President Trump as some dictator when he was the only one in the room, when we compare between the two world leaders, that was talking about peace. Zelensky, in his small country of Ukraine, as in compared to Russia, would literally be wiped out in a day or two if Putin really wanted to. And here's the kicker with Russia. In the war so far, 1.3, maybe 1.4 million soldiers between both sides combined have died. But the difference is this: the losses that Ukraine has taken is wiped out 25% of their population. Did you know Ukrainian military literally drive around and snatch up, kidnap men from their homes, tearing them from their wives, literally kicking and screaming, throwing them into a van and straight to the front line? They're in the military now. They never signed up for it. They never asked, but they're running so low on able-bodied men, they're literally snatching them out of their homes. And as a matter of fact, if I find a clip on it, because I've seen it, I would add it right here.
This video shows police officers detaining a man outside a concert venue in Kyiv. Ukrainian National Police said it carried out routine inspections with military draft officers to detain people accused of committing administrative offences. The alleged offence was missing personal military data. Showing conscription-aged men resisting detention was shared widely on social media. Similar scenes have played out in cities across Ukraine as draft officers have widened their patrols to nightlife venues.
If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, hit that like button. I'll never ask you for a cash app. I will never ask you for a super chat. You hitting that like button, it is currency because it helps spread the video to other people. And if you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe. On the Real Politics Podcast, that's what we do. We talk real politics. So subscribe to the channel. And once you subscribe, hit that notification. And as opposed to personalized, select all. Select all. That way, when I upload new videos, you'll be notified. But that is terrible. But we talk about Trump being a dictator. If anything, Zelensky's more like a Putin than anything. Zelensky's more like a Kim Jong-un. If anything, when you eliminate elections, when you eliminate political opposition, when you take over the media and nobody can badmouth or say anything negative about what you're doing, you're a dictator. But they call Trump that, but he's fighting for the First Amendment rights, for free speech, because every network talks terrible about him. You haven't seen him go after anybody except for defamation. You can have a negative opinion, but don't lie on me. You can say whatever negative thing about me you want, as long as you don't lie on me. And he's already won some of these defamation cases. So look at how the media is showing their loyalty more so to a Ukrainian president, a Ukrainian mini dictator, than they are the leader of the free world who is in the room talking about peace. And here's how you know most people didn't watch the entire meeting. Trump was in the room early on complimenting Zelensky. When a member of the media attacked Zelensky about not wearing a suit, President Trump stepped up. And it wasn't until Zelensky decided, because they had already agreed weeks ago that Zelensky was supposed to sign the mineral deal. And guess what? When the Secretary of the Treasury went there to meet with him, Zelensky pulled out. He flipped on him. And they had a very loud argument, much worse than the one that we saw publicly between Trump and Zelensky. But the one between the Secretary of the Treasury and Zelensky was behind doors, just how this one was supposed to be. So when Zelensky didn't sign there, the Secretary of the Treasury said, hey, listen, what am I supposed to go back and tell the president? We agreed to this. You said you wanted to stop your people from dying. Why are you pulling out? So he said, well, what are we going to tell the press when we go out? So when you see the press conference, when he went and met with the Secretary of Treasury, went and met with Zelensky, he met with him in Kyiv in early February. When they came out to that press conference and said, well, we're going to sign the deal in Munich. That was the lie that they were telling the public as to why they didn't resolve it right there. So let's fast forward it to what we saw this past week. Zelensky again agreed that he was going to come to the White House to sign the deal. The whole media thing was what they always do. You've seen it with every president. A foreign leader comes over, especially one that's really, really well known. They sit in the Oval Office and the media takes pictures and ask a few light questions, and then they kick everybody out and get down to business. So by no stretch was that even close to what the worst type of diplomatic debates happen behind closed doors. That was nothing compared to some of the real get downs that there have been. But that job's just happened to be public, because what Zelensky did prior to coming out in front of the media, they all agreed, and this is what the left-wing media doesn't want you to know. They all agreed that they would not litigate this in front of the media. They would take pictures and do the dance and then go behind closed doors and get down. Zelensky thought it would be smart that if he threw it out there in front of the media, that the American people would rage up and rise up and fight on his behalf and put President Trump in a pressure cooker where he would have to give some concessions to Ukraine or deal with the public backlash. But somebody didn't educate him right on who he was dealing with. The master of the art of the deal himself. The last thing you're going to do is come into the Oval Office and believe you're going to put President Trump on Front Street and somehow he's going to backpedal. Have you not been watching the last 4 years? They must not have been watching the last 4 years. They tried to take this man's life. They tried to put him in prison. Then now it's coming out. They spied on him. They put prostitutes in his administration. They did everything they could to trip this man up. And he kept coming and he kept fighting. And you think a president of a country like Ukraine is going to come in and do that to President Trump after he just took on the United States government by himself and won? Big mistake. And right after the meeting, right afterwards, what the media also don't want to tell you is we talking about 5 minutes after Trump kicked him out of the White House, he was begging to come back. As a matter of fact, the leader of the EU, the leader of NATO, the chairman of NATO, told Zelensky, you better get back in there and make that right with Trump. Everybody's like, hey, dude, you got to get back in there. We need them. Lindsey Graham, who is the senator of South Carolina, a war hawk. Lindsey Graham has never seen a war that he didn't like. Even he came out and said he was astounded by the way he saw Zelensky disrespect the White House. And Lindsey Graham has been a staunch supporter of giving Ukraine an open checkbook. But even he stepped up because of the disrespect. So for Christian to pose this question like this, and it's like they want somebody to come out and publicly say, I hate Vladimir. I hate, that's what the Democrats ignorantly do. And you expect when you come out and disrespect somebody as powerful as Putin, who got his own people that he has to look good in front of. And then he sees Joe Biden as weak, frail, they're soft. All they want to do is get on camera and talk nice, and they want to look a certain way. When a real president should be judged by his actions, not by his words. Joe Biden spoke words. And you saw Putin steamrolled those words and invaded Ukraine. But during Trump's 4 years, he never did it. And they also strengthened alliances between China and Russia. So you're going to get out and disrespect Vladimir Putin. But the Biden administration allows Chinese spy balloons to fly across the country, make it make sense. So really what I believe allegedly is happening, and it's coming out, more and more people are believing it. There's some type of money laundering thing going on behind Ukraine. Again, Ukraine is considered by global leaders as one of the most corrupt countries in the world already. And you got Vladimir Zelensky, a former comedian and dancer in high heels.
Завтра йдемо танцювати проти москалів. Затанцюємо, мова, сила у нас є. Ще не вмерла Україна, поки крепко є. Борщ, сало, цибуля, хрін, сивуха, брага. П'ю, я п'ю.
That somehow became the president of this country. You got to wonder, is he a straw man? Is he just somebody that was popular for comedy and doing silly skits that everybody in Ukraine just so happened to believe in and like? So they put him on center stage. And he comes in, he wears the G.I. Joe uniform. He does a great job showing. They bring him in front of Congress and he walks out with $100 billion until this past week. So let me get back to it.
Well, I want to play you what you said almost a year ago when you argued in favor of sending more aid to Ukraine. Take a listen.
I believe Xi and Vladimir Putin and Iran really are an axis of evil. I think they're in coordination on this. I think that Vladimir Putin would continue to march through Europe if he were allowed. I think he might go to the Balkans next. I think he might have a showdown with Poland or one of our NATO allies. To put it bluntly, I would rather send bullets to Ukraine than American boys.
Mr. Speaker, do you still believe that Ukraine is an ally who the United States should support over Vladimir Putin and an axis of evil?
Yes, it's pretty absurd for anyone in the media or Democrats to somehow proclaim that President Trump, the White House, or Republicans in Congress are on Putin's side. It's a joke. We understand that he is a dangerous adversary and he is the one that provoked the war. When we did the aid to Ukraine a year ago, the entire point of that, and I was consistent from that moment until today, the whole point was to position Ukraine for peace talks, to make sure that they could hold the line until President Trump returned to the White House, which we knew was going to happen. President Trump is the only figure on the entire globe who is powerful enough to bring both of these parties to the table. And he was in the process of doing that. And he was very, I think, excited about the deal that was going to be consummated yesterday. But President Zelensky went in and blew it up. And it is such a great disappointment for everyone. We need to get him back to the table. We need to get Ukraine to express gratitude, of course, for all that we've done for them. But to bring an end to this conflict, it is in America's interest to get this done. And it is certainly, obviously, in Ukraine's interest and all of our allies in Europe and around the world.
But, Mr. Speaker, you're saying that we all know that Putin provoked the war. Actually, President Trump said that President Zelensky provoked the war. The week started with the U.S. siding with Russia and North Korea at the UN, refusing to condemn Russian aggression in Ukraine. It ended with this Oval Office confrontation with Zelensky. Is President Trump realigning the United States with Russia here?
This is exactly why Democrats leaders get steamrolled. This is why Putin invaded under Obama. This is why Putin invaded under Biden. You disrespect, knowing this man, that country has weaponry just as lethal as ours. Our two nations can literally obliterate each other and wipe them off the map. And when it comes to this type of superpower destruction, you have to walk light. You might not like the way he runs his country, but you got to respect it. You have to respect him, at least on the world stage. Because what good does it do throwing insults to somebody that we know is cutthroat, who we know does not value Russian human life? And if he doesn't value Russian human life, because he's sending boys to the front line left and right. Russia's lost 700,000 soldiers. Why? Because they can. And they know that they'll just keep throwing bodies at Ukraine. They don't care because they'll wear Ukraine down. It'll hurt Ukraine way worse than it'll hurt Russia. So we know Vladimir is no joke, which is exactly why you play your cards right. Now, if they're trying to call for peace, why in the world would you not try to align yourself somewhat with the individuals that you're trying to bring peace between? But they're going to tell the president how he should handle this conflict when they had 3 years. Just like cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. Oh, Elon shouldn't do that. Trump shouldn't do that. Well, you had 4 years to do it and you did nothing. But now you're going to tell somebody else how to do it? You're going to tell them how to do what you couldn't do. Just like this Russia-Putin deal. You're going to tell President Trump administration how to do what you couldn't do. Get out of here.
No, President Trump is trying to get these two parties to a point of peace. And it takes certain maneuvers and certain strategies to do that. You have two parties who, to this point, have not shown any interest, apparently, in getting to peace. What President Zelensky did in the White House was effectively signaled to us that he's not ready for that yet. And I think that's a grave disappointment. We have to get this settled. And we stand with our allies, we always do, but they have to be reasonable. You've got to bring an end to this war. And for Zelensky to come in and make demands that he wasn't even making a year ago, I think shows that his priorities are in the wrong place. And I certainly hope that he will come back to his senses. President Trump has been very clear about this, that if he is ready for peace, then we can negotiate a deal. And Kristen, this mineral rights deal is a win-win for everyone. It will give us access to rare earth minerals that we need, and it will provide a level of security for Ukraine. They will effectively be in an economic partnership with us after that point, and we will definitely always defend our interest and our investments. Russia knows that. China knows that. Iran and North Korea know that. And that's a very important message for us to send.
Mr. Speaker, you're saying that the United States stands with its allies, and yet what we saw there in the Oval Office was the president and vice president berating an ally in front of cameras. Just to put a fine point on this, is the United States abandoning Ukraine?
No, they're not abandoning Ukraine. I was with the president a day before that meeting, and he was excited about this mineral rights deal. He believed it, and we all believed it, to be in the best interest of both countries. It is not the president and the vice president that berated Zelensky. I saw it the other way around. I saw Zelensky rather stiff-necked in the Oval Office. Instead of being gracious and saying thank you and looking for a way out of this mess, he did quite the opposite. Look, that's why members of Congress are frustrated. That's why the American people are frustrated about this. We have to stand for America's principles and America's priorities, and I think this would have accomplished all those things. And it's really unfortunate the way that it developed.
Mr. Speaker, Senator Lindsey Graham on Friday floated the idea that President Zelensky may need to resign in order for there to be a peace agreement. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, something has to change. Either he needs to come to his senses and come back to the table in gratitude, or someone else needs to lead the country to do that. I mean, it's up to the Ukrainians to figure that out. But I can tell you that we are re-exerting peace through strength. President Trump has brought back strength to the White House. We knew that this moment would come. We worked hard for it to come, and now it's here. But we need these parties to go along with us, and we need President Zelensky to do what is necessary. This war has drug on far too long. He's lost hundreds of thousands of people, including women and children. We've got to bring an end to it. And I think our European allies are hoping that that is the case, and we are as well.
Now, you heard Speaker of the House Mike Johnson give a great explanation on what's going on. And did you hear how Kristen kept her whole point was trying to spin it as to where we're besties with Putin, and he disrespected Zelensky. Do you know congressional members were in Congress, in the House, in the People's House, waving Ukrainian flags, wearing Ukrainian flags, not waving American flags, Ukrainian flags? When did it get to this point where our congressional members, the left-wing lunatics, are supporting other countries more than they support ours? It's crazy. Now, in this clip, something that never happens, well, what does always happen is Scott Jennings bringing a common sense approach to a CNN panel of left-leaning lunatics, libtards is what I really like to call them. But on this episode, this clip, things go a little bit different. Check out what happens here with Scott Jennings as they discuss President Trump and Zelensky in the Oval Office in the showdown.
I don't know if he needs an apology. He needs Zelensky to recognize the position that he's in.
Which to you is what?
We're their patron. We're their best hope for the killing to stop and for them to emerge from this sovereign and prosperous. And we're also their best hope as a business partner. I mean, all Zelensky had to do today was put on a tie, show up, smile, say thank you, sign the papers, and have lunch. That's it. And he couldn't do that. And this followed 10 days of being difficult in private, and now 1 day of being stupid in public. This did not have to go down this way.
Okay.
And however you feel about why it started, why it's going on, who's right and who's wrong, we can help them in this and come out okay on the other side, and he's making it hard.
Now, first of all,
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I actually agree with Scott. And everything that he said was basically right.
Wow.
I know I'm going to get killed on social media for admitting that, but so be it. And the fact is that it doesn't matter whether Vice President Vance planned it or just took the opportunity to bait Zelensky. Zelensky took the bait, okay? Yeah. And he shouldn't have. He made a mistake.
Wow. So as you heard there, for the first time, this never really happened. Even CNN's left-wing host that they always bring in that's going to bring all that emotional stuff out of there and yada, yada, and very little substance. But even he had to side with Scott Jennings that it wasn't on the president to be polite. Now, granted, and the president was polite. If you watch it, he was extremely polite. He even defended Zelensky against the media attacking his way of dress. But where he drew the line at is when Zelensky disrespectingly referred to the vice president as JD. And then he tried to say, oh, you're talking loudly. Then he tried to tell the president what we're going to feel. No, you don't talk bad. You don't talk about my country like that and tell us what we're going to feel. It's kind of like if your child hurts another child, right? And the other parent comes along and they're saying, your child, my child, and you're like apologetic, like, look, I apologize. I'm sorry. You tell your kid, hey, you shouldn't have done that. And the other person says, yeah, little sucker or little troublemaker. And you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold on now. Now, granted, I apologize to you what my child did, and I got on him, but what you're not going to do, you're not going to disrespect him. It's kind of like that, like Trump acknowledged, hey, look, I know things are going on. I get it, you defend your people. We know Vladimir, you know, he shouldn't have done that, but whoa, what you're not going to do is you're not going to talk bad about what's going to happen to my people. And that's the type of president that's why we elected him. So, hey, listen, if you hung out with me this far, thank you so much for watching this video. I just wanted to bring you some updates on what's going on out there. If you haven't liked the video already, do so. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the Real Politics Podcast and share the video also. Other than that, I sincerely thank you from the top and bottom of my heart. I'm Brian Maxwell saying I look forward to seeing you at the top. Over and out, y'all.